Now I'm going to record. Today's agenda, I will quickly tell who we are and what we do in Stretch InProcure, so we can set the stage. Secondly, introduce LAP and jump straight to today's subject, Lean-Agile Procurement, why, what, and how. Hopefully, we will have some questions to answers at the end. Stretch is a Scandinavian consultancy company that offers expertise and advice within IT, established 20 years ago in Stockholm. The company consists of 16 different companies and about 300 consultants. After 10 years in Norway, autumn 2021, 4 independent subject areas were merged into 4 companies. Within the purchasing area, Stretch InProcure and Stretch Procurement Sweden are about 35 consultants. Stretch InProcure increases customers' competitiveness through cost control, efficient procurement, and digitalization. Where purchasing and digitalization meet, Stretch InProcure is your preferred partner. Our goal is to make you the expert. Lean-Agile Procurement is a new mindset that enables sourcing organizations to rapidly generate successful purchasing outcomes. Complex sourcing made simple. LAP achieves that through a comprehensive, accelerated, and highly collaborative methodology. Project timescales of days instead of months have been repeated with both public and private enterprises. A new mindset, when correctly applied, LAP results in time to value more than 400% faster and 80% savings and radical risk reduction and considerable improvement in client satisfaction, while constantly focusing on the most valuable things first. Before we start, and Mirko to take lead and share his presentation, questions, please use the chat room during the webinar. Presentations will be sent per email to each participant. There is no survey, but we are grateful if you leave your feedback. I will let Mirko share his presentation after the next slide. Delivering value. This is a game changer. Just briefly summarizing the main points from the head of global sourcing at Barclays. This makes it all the more important to focus first on the most important business goals, the why, and the customer needs, the what, and only after that on solutions or products, the how. Mirko, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Glenn. And again, a warm welcome from Switzerland. I'm glad to inspire you all a bit in the next 20-25 minutes. And yeah, Glenn just took out the key messages, which is awesome. So you hopefully are already a bit interested and triggered. So I want to share with you a bit how we do it based on an example where we even got awarded. And I will tell you how we become more, how the way of working needs to change so that we could achieve these phenomenal results. And the title also came out, was Glenn's creativity. I think it fits very well. You have the suppliers you deserve. A lot of people that have applied Lean-Agile Procurement came back to us and said, it feels like speed dating. And there's a bit of truth in it, and we will find out more about it in the next few minutes. So first of all, just about myself, I'm not a procurement specialist. I used to have a software sourcing company, so I know the supplier side very well. I'm co-founder of Flow Days, which is a consultancy in Switzerland and Germany, offering any kind of services to become more agile. And on that journey, we came in touch with procurement. This is now 6 years back, and it turned out that the commercial functions, if you look at it more broader, had similar challenges dealing with uncertainty, dealing with this ever-changing demands in the market internally, and also dealing with vendors. So we came up with a crazy idea: how can agile principles and practices serve us in that area? And we took an example and asked ourselves, so imagine your most complex sourcing case. What if we have just one day to sign the contract? And this powerful question, out of this powerful question, a whole global movement evolved. And in 2018, we decided that this topic is too big for our small consultancy, and we founded the Lean-Agile Procurement Alliance, which in the meanwhile, a lot of other organizations from the agile supply chain procurement space support. And we also started our own certifications and learning path. Yeah, so that was the only marketing. So let's deep dive into the case. So this is a case we supported Swiss Casinos, a Swiss medium-sized company with around 1 billion revenue a year, and they faced the challenge to source a new ERP system. And the challenge was, and this was the guy, he reached out to us, Daniel. He said, well, we just have 12 months, not just for the sourcing, but to introduce the new system. And this is just from experience, not enough time. I mean, we would need almost the whole time for the delivery. And so we need to radically rethink how we find and select not just the solution, but also the right partner. So let's take a brief view how we source today. This is super simplified. I'm aware of that, but just to give you a bit of a flavor. So we are quite agile in ideation. We can generate hundreds of ideas every day, and hopefully we are already quite agile if it comes to delivery. But all the way in the middle, the way we work, the way we budget, decisions on portfolio level, then if it comes to sourcing, is quite transactional and focused mainly on the scope and less on interaction and collaboration. And this leads then to a lot of challenges. So the people from the buyer, but also the vendor side, the experts that know what is possible, are far too late involved. Actually, this transactional nature, and it's not just procurement's fault, by the way, takes a lot of time with no value add to the end customer. So having this powerful idea in mind and all the agile values and practices and principles, we ask ourselves, okay, what if we have not 12 months, but just one day? And obviously one day won't be enough. And what needs to change? So first principle is this collaboration and co-creation. So what we are doing with Lean-Agile Procurement is we are setting up a cross-functional team, first on the buyer side, where Daniel, as a head of finance, he had a clear picture, a vision, what he is looking for, where he want to develop, the ERP system and how to serve the company with it. So he became the product owner. So that's the first big lesson. So we do not set up a team for sourcing. We are setting up a team for delivery that does the sourcing. And so there are no more handovers from the business to procurement, to the lawyers, and so forth. We include them in the team, okay? And then, so that's the first principle. The second is we apply 4 main steps. I'm gonna explain that in a minute. So the second big principle is if you're facing a strategic sourcing case, like sourcing an ERP system, then we expect a lot of uncertainty. And we got inspired by business development, where we tend to write 100 pages business cases in the past, but in our today's world, we accept this uncertainty and we just use, for example, a business model canvas, so a business case on 1 page, which becomes a living document and a collaborative effort. And we always start with something like that, with a business case, but we demanded something similar then to co-create the partnership or the sourcing case. So we invented the Lean Procurement Canvas, which is basically divided in 2 areas. On the right-hand side, the blue is the buyer side, and on the left-hand side, it's the supplier side. And we share the why. So what's the vision of this ERP case, I asked Daniel. What are your ultimate goals you want to achieve in the next few months? Business objectives and outcomes. And then on the right-hand side, who's going to use it and what are their needs, right? So that we then could look on the left-hand side to the how, which kind of partner, which capabilities, which services and products are we looking for? So this is kind of the business fit. We did that in the past already, maybe not as on one view as we do it now with the help of the canvas. But we are introducing a new dimension, and this is at the bottom, the who. So who is involved in the delivery, or who will be most probably be involved in delivery from buyer side and supplier side. And we, beside the business fit, we also want to test the social and culture fit. Why is that important? It turned out in agile delivery that this is as important success criteria if we like each other, to simplify things again. So if you're interested in agile contracting, so this is the Lean Procurement Canvas is the most lean agile contract, at least on the Swiss law, beside of a verbal contract. So I mentioned we also introduced a new approach. I give you here an overview, and then we fly through the case with versus casinos with some inspiring pictures. So first things first, what we are doing in Lean-Agile Procurement is we are setting up this cross-functional team, and this is again a collaborative approach. So we are inviting the sponsor, the key stakeholders, all at the same place, lawyer, procurement, whoever is needed to make this work, and we co-create together the business objectives, the frame conditions, and so forth. And then this team starts to operate, and the Lean Procurement Canvas operates as a guidance, a guiding tool. This canvas obviously has not enough space by purpose, so it's always just a nice summary. We end up with tons of attachments with further informations depending on the case. So what in step 2 preparation, the team is basically focusing on why and what, basically what they are doing, they're running through the 7 to 8 sourcing steps, but as a team. So if there is a market research needed, they're going to do it. If they need to gather the needs, they're going to do it. They're going to organize those workshops and run the workshops as a team. And this, with this setup, having, for example, in banking, compliance is a huge issue. We have somebody from compliance in the team. We could be compliant with all the internal governances because we have the representatives in the team. So this is not yet super fancy and new. The real new thing, the secret sauce, if you will, is in step 3. So if the team is also responsible to find and select the solution and then down select a short list of potential partners. And in step 3, we're going to invite those partners simultaneously in a big room event that sometimes is just an hour, sometimes it's several days, virtual or in person, with the purpose of co-creating their solution design, proposals, and even the contract. So even the negotiation, everything happens on that workshop, so that in a best case, that's at least our ambition, we can decide the delivery team is extended or set up to and ready to start delivery, so that we then could move on in the best case day after the workshop. So let's jump in, give you some inspiration how this works in practice. So I mentioned setting up the team is important, creating this internal alignment between the key stakeholders. In this ERP case, we asked them, you know, what's the purpose of all that? What are key criteria? What's the business objectives? And they said, well, we have, as a start, we want to have accounting up and running. We want to have payroll up and running, and procurement processes up and running. And in the future, we know there will be HR processes and other things, but that's not yet in focus. So we agreed on the direction, and we also agreed on several constraints. So for example, they said, we made the mistake of endless customizing, and we introduced a policy, no customizing. For example, we are looking for an open architecture and so forth. In this case, we had the CTO at the table, and he said, well, we have a Microsoft cloud strategy, so SAP and other ERP solutions were immediately out of our focus, and we had to look at Microsoft solutions first, if those will serve us or not. Also, timing became, we got all the transparency from leadership level and key stakeholders. So based on this information, we were able to form the team. And another important aspect is we also did kind of an internal negotiation to who has which decision competences as we go along, because decision latency is our enemy if we want to be fast. So in step 2, preparation, we had workshops with the end users. So instead of working in the lighthouse as a team and guessing what the user needs are, we invited accountants, people in payroll and so forth, and asked them, what are your needs? How do you work? What is hindering you today? What could be improved? And so forth. Obviously, the team went down to the short list, and because this is the most interesting part, I want to focus on that, the big room workshop. So that was prior to COVID, so we were able to meet 3 competitors in the same room simultaneously. And what you see here is on the left-hand side, it's a sponsor, the CFO, who was talking about the vision of Swiss casinos, his vision for this new ERP, and this already drove first questions and dialogue about the direction. So another important aspect is we are not just aiming for the business fit, as I said. So is this the right product? Is this the right pricing, timing, etc. that serves us? That's still important. But we are also interested in the social and culture fit. So we were asking the three vendors to show up with their sales guys, with the decision takers and so forth, but also, and in particular important, with the people we might work with throughout delivery, okay? So what have we done throughout the workshop? So we had those needs described. Each of the need had a business value estimation, so that they really knew what's important, more important to us and less important. And each of that need even had acceptance criteria. So that gave the vendors quite of a cool insight about our current knowledge of the scope. So we handed over, it was about 70 or 80 cards, each card representing a need, to the vendors, and we asked them, could you please estimate them now in front of us? We are here to help you increase your understanding what we mean with each of that. And it was interesting to observe how they deal with it. You know, some vendors, the most senior consultant took over and run almost in a burnout, while others split up nicely in subgroups and came up with the right questions. So which one you take, right? So this was an exercise. The purpose of that exercise was that they get familiar with the scope, but we immediately told them, this is not the scope, we're going to contract you, because the scope will change anyway. We are aware of that. So instead, we use that current state of scope, if you will, to co-create with each of the vendors an agile roadmap, which you can see on the right. So this is basically each of the columns has business objectives, acceptance criteria or key results, when are those objectives met, and even metrics, how we measure that we are on track for each of this time box. Each column is a 1 month, 2 months, whatever you define time box. And so we co-created those roadmaps with each of the vendors simultaneously, and we also asked for advice. Does that make sense? Did they have forgotten something from the other vendors? So we let them present intermediate results so that they also could steal and tweak. That was one of the purpose, so that all of their solutions, their estimations became better, and we also could minimize risk even before we go into delivery. So yeah, this from another case with Air France, they summed it up quite nicely. We wanted to improve each of their proposals together and then choose the best of it. So just a little side note, what can happen in such a workshop, we often have unexpected surprises. One was that it turned out that the licensing model was a key cost driver, and we didn't took enough attention to that in our preparation. So as we realized that, we immediately stopped the workshop and we asked the 3 competitors if they could forget for a moment that they are competitors, so that they could co-create the optimal licensing model for our case. And after 50 minutes, they just were done. So a great opportunity to have different companies. In this case, they offered all the same product. Otherwise, that wouldn't be possible, to use their intelligence in the room to co-create their proposals and estimations. So we want to use the time in this workshop. In this case, it was a 2 days workshop to talk about anything. Could be a concern, could be assumptions, could be questions and risks, and we immediately share that with the other vendors so that they could also adapt their solutions and estimations and such. So if you remind yourself to your last proposal, you might have had a list of deliverables and below an even bigger list of assumptions and risks and basically save as clauses, and we want to get rid of those as much as we can. I mentioned if you apply Lean-Agile Procurement full stack, then also the negotiations will take place. So in this case, we co-created a cost structure which all the parties agreed with a cost ceiling, licenses, maintenance fees, initial project fees, and so forth. And those conversations have been private. And as we had more than almost 2 days to talk about anything, the final negotiations took just 20 minutes because we have talked about everything already. And nevertheless, we still have often the case that one of the vendor, is much more expensive or much lower in a price than all the others. And if that happens, we use these private discussions to talk about that. Why is that? Do they see something what the others don't? Do they have a risk we haven't talked about? Do they have an assumption or a risk we haven't talked about it yet? And this is a huge driver for savings, having this open and honest conversations. Yeah, I mentioned that we do demos about all the stuff that is not confidential, obviously. Publicly, we share that between the vendors. And in this case, we also wanted to know the solution a bit better. So as we had the people there that actually could do the job, we decided to run a proof of concept in parallel. And we asked them to customize our most challenging questions, not just a happy path of a product demo, and they just did. This was also kind of a cool test of what are they delivering, what are they committing to deliver, and what they have delivered, and if they fail in this short time, how they react. Will they just cheat and or will they proactively come? We promised this. This is not was not possible, etc. So in this demo, at the end of each day, we also included further users again and important stakeholders that haven't been with us throughout the whole workshop. It's a great opportunity to get also further feedback from and include the users again. One last side note, and I also have to look on the timing. In this case, and that also can happen, the team decided for vendor A, you have the best product, the best proposal, etc. But they said that the guy with the crown was from vendor B. You're such an extraordinary person. Would you mind to join our team as well? So they kind of cherry-picked from all the vendors to form a cross-company delivery team. To sum it up, the results, so that was a 4 weeks lead time. If we look over the Christmas holidays time, you can see the green bars, the days the cross-functional team met and worked. So in average 2 days a week. There's plenty of room for improvement. We have done similar cases in 2 weeks, sometimes in 1 week. And it's also very efficient for the vendors. They basically just needed to show up, right? Yeah, Glenn already took over this results. So this is really became representative. We have cases where we have 800% improvement of time to market. I think what is really cool is that even the vendors that didn't make it said, that's so cool being in collaboration with you, spending 2 days and then have clarity. And often, by the way, they might not win this time, but we got in touch with them and other project evolved out of this workshop. So everything perfect? No, definitely not. There are some challenges, to be honest. So having the good people with focus, so 2 days a week or better more, is always a challenge. Handling multiple vendors simultaneously. We, for example, had recently a case, a virtual big room with 70 people online from 4 vendors from all over the world in a huge pharmaceutical case. You need to have special skills for handling big groups and its moderation. If you have one of the big consultancies or companies in there, it's also sometimes a challenge to stay in the driver's seat. It happens with Daniel and his team. One of the big companies, software companies, came in and said, you need to agree to our general terms and conditions, and they almost accepted. And then I asked the question, why? And we then had a conversation why we don't want to stick to there, and if they can double check with their legal team if they would agree to ours. Otherwise, we would not be able to understand the GTCs in 2 days and so forth. And finally, they accepted. Otherwise, they would have been out anyway. Include the lawyer. If they are not familiar with agile contracts, do that from the beginning. And yes, this is a huge mind shift, not one. I haven't counted it. It's really a lot different because we are looking for partners and not suppliers that just need to supply. It's more also about humans. So leave your comfort zone, make it like Daniel, be the change you want to see in the world. Experiment with the Lean procurement canvas. It, by the way, can be also used for assessing an existing partnership. We as a consultancy use it as a one-page proposal. So quite a cool tool, everything on one view. Yeah, so this is us. We have, in the meanwhile, last slide, Glenn, he becomes already nervous. We have a lot of adopters already all over the place from public and private sector and different industries. Definitely the sweet spot are strategic, complex sourcing cases where you expect a lot of surprises and changes. Everything else, I think the common practices are better, and Lean-Agile Procurement would even generate overhead. Yeah, one thing maybe to mention, InProcure, together with us, we are going to have a certification workshop next month because we want to bring this topic also to Norway and the Nordics. So yeah, thank you very much for your interest. You're gonna find more on lineageprocurement.com. There is plenty of success stories, free downloads, and so forth. Yeah, happy to back to the studio for Q&A and.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Mirko. I could go on much longer, obviously. But yeah, we have some questions. First of all, I will try and share my screen. I will jump over this just to remind you that this is a game changer. Obviously, as Mirko just mentioned, probably the most obvious question, if I may, Lean-Agile Procurement collaborates with Stretch InProcure in the Norwegian market. So now it's said, but we have a look at the chat rooms here. This is a question from Christian. What was the approximately spend cost for this ERP project?
Yeah, it was a 6-digit spend. I'm currently involved in a $1 billion case where obviously we don't gonna spend 1 million at once. That wouldn't be agile. But you know, it could be anything between, I would say, 100K till endless. But if it's just 10 grands to spend, then we, you know, setting up a cross-functional team, etc., is more costly than that. So we also try to stretch and minimize the efforts we spend in accordance to the spend budget, if you will. So recently in a telco, we had an existing partnership and we just had one workshop filling out the canvas. It lasted for 1 hour. The master service agreement was already in place, and after 1 hour we were done, just having the right people together from both parties, and they just decided on what they just crafted for their future partnership and next steps. So I hope this answers your question.
Good. Next question is from Martin. Does LAP work also in highly customized build-to-order hardware products like assembly lines?
Yeah, I'm currently involved in agriculture, milk industry, if you will, and there is one of the cases of some specific customized assembly products for their needs, and this is really yeah, I mean, the product itself might not be that super complex, but their internal alignment, what it needs, you know, is quite of a challenge. So they decided to apply Lean-Agile Procurement, and it could turn out that after the 2 steps, we know exactly what we want, and there is maybe even a product out there, so that the 3rd step, the big room, might not be needed, and we just could go further in a traditional RFP. So yes, hardware is more and more also interested in that. Just to give you an insight about one project, this is a government project. They're sourcing new trains, and they, in my opinion, there's a huge potential just the way they create the tender documents, because they focus on the how, the solution description. So they have a lead time of almost 8 years for the whole tendering process. It's insane. Why is that? Because they have more than 8,000 specs, so thousands of pages. And we came in and said, okay, can we do this in a different way? What's the objectives? What are the needs? And if we start to describe just the needs, we will end up with maybe, I mean, currently the hypothesis that we end up with 100, 200 needs, which is then also much more efficient to publish the tender, and also for the respondents on the vendor side. So there are a lot of changes, in my opinion, that come together right now. Also, agile hardware development is another movement. We're working very closely with Joe Justice, the founder of that, and he also says, you know, especially in our current days of blocked supply chains, we need to find new ways of finding, selecting vendors, and even, so maybe a question back to you, what is there something beyond supply chains?
Yeah, I know you had a case, Mirko, about Air France and KLM, which is about logistics. Was that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that's about the logistics. That was not, by the way, not done by myself. So we have a global network of experts. So that was done by Sophie out of France. And yeah, so more and more industries captured. And yeah, it's very hard to disagree with what we are doing because it just makes sense. Let's co-create things and be more integral with the people from other functions, if you will, if you start internally, because nobody wants to be the one at the end of the chain put under stress. Now we need it yesterday, and so yeah. Any other questions?
No, there are no more questions. I think maybe it's good respect the time of the participants and round up. Thank you, Mirko. I will just finish off with a few slides that Mirko touched upon. Please do follow us on Lean-Agile-Procurement.com. And Stretch InProcure is hosting a webinar, a new webinar, which is more like a podcast talk. And in April, we have a 12 hours workshop where you can be certified as a Lean-Agile Procurement practice engineer and learn more. So keep watching out.
Yeah, maybe just a few words about this workshop. So we run through, we simulate the participants' cases they bring in and apply the good practices that we usually use, so that you really experience how Lean-Agile Procurement feels. And you also, and there is plenty of time also to exchange and learn from others. So it's we usually have agile coaches, people from procurement, but also from the vendor side, which is also a good opportunity to exchange. And finally, we also have developed an assessment, a self-assessment, so that you could also find out how agile is your current organization from a procurement perspective.
Okay, and still no more questions. I think that was crystal clear. But anyway, last slide is in Norwegian. Please do reach out to me if you have any questions. And thank you very much for participating. We will send you the slides, the presentation, and maybe even put out the video on the big internet. Who knows? So thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.